When Nicki Minaj first stepped into the game, she wasn't supposed to speak. She was supposed to perform, to play the industry's favorite role, the hyper feminine distraction who could outbar men but still bow to their system. But something happened. You can hear it in her tone now. That slight change when she talks about ownership, control, and legacy. You can feel it when she pauses, right? When she speaks before saying something that sounds less like a soundbite and more like scripture. That's the moment a performer becomes a truth teller because truth tellers are born when they stop protecting the system that fed them and start feeding the souls it starved. Nikki's transformation didn't start with pink wigs or alter egos. It started with exhaustion, with the realization that fame was a costume and truth had always been the real outfit. And now she's wearing it boldly, calling out industry puppetry, creative control, and silent sacrifices. She's no longer just rhyming, she's revealing. And revelation has a different vibration. Nicki Minaj, as a truth teller, represents something bigger than a rebrand. It's the awakening of a woman who's finally ready to speak the unspeakable. That behind every hit, every award, every Barbie dream, there's a contract that doesn't just take talent, it tests your soul. And when you start talking like that, you stop being an artist in the industry. You become a threat to it. So now, when Nikki speaks, it's not just entertainment, it's energy, it's ancestral. It's the echo of every woman who had to smile while her spirit was screaming. Nicki Minaj is no longer just the queen of rap. She's entering the ranks of those who dare to tell the truth out loud, even when it costs them silence from the machine that once made them. She's becoming one of us, the truth tellers. Nicki once said that there was a spirit that came over her, one she did not summon, not consciously, but that rose up in moments of rage, pain, or betrayal. She described it as he, as if it had a mind of its own. That's not just a creative alter ego, that's a spiritual imprint. When she entered the music industry, she entered a system that doesn't just sign artists, it initiates them. And those initiations don't just take your image, they test your identity. The rituals, the pressures, the betrayals, the isolation, all of that can open spiritual doorways, especially when the energy around you is dark and competitive and money driven. Nikki said that the spirit came during rage. That tells you everything because the rage is an invitation. It's raw power before it's tamed. The moment your soul screams louder than your training. When the industry pushed Nikki too far through control, disrespect, and placed her in spiritual warfare, something answered back through her. In spiritual terms, that could be one of three things. I want to speak about a spirit, a defender spirit. Now, an ancestral or protective energy is a defender spirit that steps in when an individual is under psychic attack. This is common in lineages of women who survived public crucifixion and humiliation. Nikki mentioned how her mom was a victim of domestic violence. So there may be someone that was also in her mother to protect her, to keep her sane. And the lineage, the ancestors felt that Nikki needed help, right? So it's the you won't break me energy that sometimes speaks in a voice that's older than your own. It could be a created spirit, formed from years of suppression, pain, and rage, and then it becomes its own entity. Now, it's a kind of emotional avatar that helps you survive an environment that keeps trying to erase you. Now, artists often mistake this for alter egos, but once fed by attention, pain, and ritual, it becomes something more independent. It could be a bound spirit, Now, this is something that is introduced through the music industry itself, through the wrong environments, contracts, or energy exchanges. Now, a spirit attached to the industry's darker practices is one that feeds off of your fame, you worshiping it, and always in chaos. So many artists describe it as a feeling as not being themselves once fame hits a certain level, right? Nicki's awareness of it shows that she's not lost. She's observing it now. And that's what separates a victim of possession from a truth teller who's recovering their power. Because the moment she started speaking about it instead of from it, that's the moment her consciousness began to reclaim authority. She began naming what once used her as a mouthpiece. And in the spiritual world, naming is how you reclaim dominion. I'm going a little further. When you watch Nicki Minaj now, you're not just seeing a rapper. You're watching a woman in spiritual transition, a woman who's standing between two frequencies, the one that made her famous and the one that's calling her home. Now, there's a stillness in her lately, a quiet that used to be covered by color, wigs, and persona. And when that quiet comes after years of chaos, it's never random. It's the sound of awakening after a long spiritual contract. That spirit she speaks of, the one that came during rage, I don't see it as simply demonic. I see it as reactive, a force that was birthed in her pain, sharpened by her betrayal, and magnified by an industry that profits off emotional fracture. It entered when she had to fight for her space in rooms that weren't built for her voice, when her truth had to become louder than her trauma just to be heard, when she learned that rage was the only language the system respected. That's when the he she talks about stepped forward, a masculine protector that is born from survival. It's not coincidence that she often channels masculine energy when defending herself. It's spiritual compensation. When a woman's divine feminine has been violated by a system built on exploitation, the spirit of defense takes on masculine armor. At first, it served her, it gave her power, it gave her dominance in a male driven industry. But eventually, the same energy that protected her began to possess her, silencing her softness, interrupting her peace, and creating cycles of public outbursts and isolation. That's what happens when a protective spirit overstays its season, when the tool becomes the teacher. Now, she's at the crossroad most artists never reach, not consciously. The choice between feeding that spirit or freeing it. If you watch closely, her interviews, her music, her tone, they're all reflecting that battle. One moment she's soft, maternal, and divine. The next, she's sharp, defiant, almost possessed by a vibration that doesn't fully belong to her anymore. That duality is the residue of spiritual warfare. But here's the prophetic part, what I foresee. Nicki is entering a return phase. The system that used her voice to fuel its empire is losing grip over her. She's beginning to pull her spirit back, piece by piece, through honesty, through confrontation, and through transparency. You'll start to see her shift her focus from domination to documentation, from proving she's the best to proving what the industry does to the best. And when she begins speaking, not just about herself, but about the patterns, that's when her transformation into a full truth teller will be complete. That's when the rage spirit will leave because its job will be done. It was never there to destroy her, it was always there to wake her. But before that liberation comes exposure. I foresee a phase where she'll start addressing hidden things openly, as she's doing now, but not just in lyrics, but through energy. She'll talk about what was done behind the scenes, about ownership, about spiritual warfare, and women in the industry. She might not call it that directly, but those who can feel energy will know. And when that happens, she'll be targeted again. The same system that celebrated her rebellion will fear her revelation. But by that point, she'll no longer be powered by the old spirit. She'll be powered by awareness. The most dangerous version of Nicki Minaj won't be the rapper, it'll be the healed prophet. And that's where I see her going, not just as an artist, but as a truth bearing woman whose voice has moved from performance to prophecy. When she steps into that phase, she'll no longer need any alter ego. She'll speak from her original frequency, the one the world never got to meet because it was too busy consuming her creation. That's the Nicki that's being born right now. That's the Nicki who'll teach other women how to survive fame without losing their soul. You can hear it when she speaks now, that tremor between power and pain. Nicki Minaj isn't just talking anymore. She's testifying because every empire built on silence eventually forces its queens to scream. She once called it a spirit that won't go away, said it came during rage. That wasn't madness, that was visitation. A force born the moment her spirit said, enough. The world crowned her for her rhymes, but heaven watched her for her wounds. Every industry has an altar. Some artists bring talent, others are told to bring their soul. Nicki walked in bright, Caribbean fire, Bronx rhythm, Queen's precision. They dressed her in fame, fed her with cameras, then starved her peace until her emotions turned to armor. And in that armor, rage found a doorway. Rage isn't a spirit's cry when it's being ignored too long, right? It doesn't ask permission, it announces purpose. So when she said he came, that he wasn't random. That was the masculine defender her lineage called forward when her divine feminine was under attack. At first, that energy protected her. It gave her strength, strength in rooms that wanted her quiet. It turned fear into performance, hurt into heat. But protection overstays when healing is delayed. What once defends you can begin to define you. And the spirit that fought for her crown started feeding on the chaos that came with it. That's why her interviews feel like war and worship at once. She's fighting herself and freeing herself in the same breath. Most people saw her alter ego. Few recognized they were survival codes. When the system demanded a version of her it could control, she built avatars to hide the woman underneath. But every mask is heavy, and the spirit that once spoke through her began demanding its own stage. That's when artists start talking about voices, about entities, about something that comes over them. That's not superstition, that's a signal. It means the contract has shifted from paperwork to possession. Nicki now stands between two selves, the one the industry created and the one God is calling back. You can hear the tug of war in her tone, the prophecy trying to speak through the persona. And every time she chooses transparency over image, that spirit loses ground because light doesn't fight darkness, it replaces it. I foresee her voice changing again, not in pitch, but in purpose. The rage will quiet, the rhythm will deepen. She will stop proving she's the best and start exposing what the best costs. She will document the hidden economy of souls, how success is sold and how spirits are traded, how women are crowned and then crucified. And when she begins naming the patterns instead of the players, the system will shake. Because once you speak revelation, contracts written in darkness starts to dissolve. Every prophet has to choose what to keep. Nicki's next chapter isn't about beats or charts, it's about release. She will decide if that spirit that came in rage leaves as an enemy or ascends as an ally that has transformed. If she chooses healing, she'll birth something the industry can't market, a woman who has mastered herself. And that's what the system fears most because healed women don't make good puppets, they make prophecies. There will come a moment, quiet, unscripted, where she'll speak without an alter ego, without that armor. Her tone will be lower, more grounded and certain. That will be the day the spirit leaves, not in defeat, but in graduation. It will have finished its assignment, which was to guard her until she could guard herself. And the world will meet Nicki Minaj, not the performer, not the Barbie, not even the queen of rap, but the woman who walked through fire and came out fluent in divine language. The most dangerous version of Nicki isn't the one that raps, it's the one that remembers. When she begins to teach what nearly took her, the veil will lift for countless women who were told their rage was madness, that they were crazy. They'll realize it was protection. They'll realize it was God showing them their own power that was disguised as survival. Nikki's testimony will not be her downfall. Absolutely not. It will be her ministry. And to those who can feel energy, you'll know when it happens. The tone will shift. The music will sound less like rebellion and more like release. That's when you know the spirit that once wouldn't leave has finally gone home and the truth teller has taken its place. Stay covered, stay conscious, stay undefeated. See you on the next one. Bye.